And we shall check that, the audio balance, because I get the feeling this isn't the balance I want. I get the feeling. I don't know, you know what? Surprisingly, believe it or not, I think this might actually be a pretty good balance, honestly. Okay. So, salutations, friends. My name is Brianna Suki-Bond, otherwise known as No Ordinary Scholar, and we are joining today. We've gathered here today for my reading wrap-up of quarter one of this year. Oh my God, I was not ready for this. It mentally just processed today that this was a thing I need, I would actually be doing this, and that means quarter one is over, and that's weird. That's weird. Why is it over? There should be so much more time left. I feel like time is just going by. It's just running away from me. But I have no choice in the matter, so we're gonna continue on anyway with this reading wrap up. So I had a bit of a rough reading quarter, as you are going to see. I think I finished 4 actual novels. I did a decent number of short stories, and then I finished up a nonfiction book that I started at the end of last year as well. And we have feelings, and unfortunately not super positive feelings. Not super positive feelings about a lot of it. It's fine. We'll work it out. Where to start? We are going to start, actually, with the books, novels, fiction that I finished and rated. And the first one that I read this year was The Conductors by Nicole Glover. It was not a good start to the year. Let's go ahead and read out this descriptor bio. It's not a bio. It's the blurb. Actually, question if you want in the comments, do you refer to the description on the back of a book as the blurb? Because I grew up with it always being called a blurb, but everyone, since joining author Twitter, a blurb seems to be specifically when someone of note has a comment about your book, and this is exclusively known as a synopsis, but I literally grew up only ever hearing it being called a blurb. So hopefully I don't confuse you. But here's the blurb synopsis description of The Conductors. As a conductor on the Underground Railroad, Hetty Rhodes helped usher dozens of people north with her wits and magic. Now that the Civil War is over, Hetty and her husband Benji have settled in Philadelphia, solving murders and mysteries that the white authorities won't touch. When they find one of their friends slain in an alley, Hetty and Benji bury the body and set off to find answers. But the secrets and intricate lies of elites of Black Philadelphia only serve to dredge up more questions. To solve this mystery, they will have to face ugly truths all around them, including the ones about each other. I was so into this book when I started it, and I was so into it for probably the first half. I realized that one of my favorite romance tropes, I realize now, is definitely we got together for one reason or another. We got together for practical reasons, but there was no love. But as we continue on as husband and wife, we start to fall in love, and now I have to figure out how to tell this person that I think is only with me for they're almost fake dating. They're almost fake dating is what's going on in this book, and I love that. I love it. Probably my favorite romance trope. I was so into it. I was so into the story. I was so into their romance. I was mostly into their romance. But then, around the halfway point, you have them go out. They take a train to this, dock area, and they're having a festival. And I feel, once I hit the festival, it felt like they were literally just the entire thing was like 20 pages of just copying and pasting the exact same like conversation basically over and over again. And after that, from that point on, I just was so disinterested. The like murder in the end, I felt was like it didn't feel like it had been put together, kind of like it didn't feel like it was actually set up, because there were like 8 different storylines all like that they were following, and it felt there was a lot going on. There's too much going on for me. I didn't feel I didn't feel like I had actually seen any of the clues for like where they could have left clues for the murder. There were like no clues, and so I just kind of didn't care. Like, I think there may have been one clue about who the murderer was, but I like only vaguely remember if that had been said, and other than that, like, there are literally no other clues whatsoever about who this person could have been, aside from, okay, this is gonna be a spoiler, but like the only other clue aside from one thing that actually is a clue, the only other clue they potentially have is that they say one person's sibling didn't make it out of slavery, or sibling or wife, something didn't make it out of slavery. And I guess we were supposed to assume that because Hetty and Benji often went out and tried to like rescue people from slavery, we were supposed to assume that it was their fault, but like nothing had been said to actually indicate that they were there and that they like were involved in that specific instance. And you know, slavery was happening a lot of places, so it's not like they could have been at every single place. The mystery lost me. There were like 8 other storylines, all that lost me. The only thing I really cared, like the 2 stars is specifically for their relationship. That's it. Is for Hetty and Benji. That's all I had for them. That's all I could give this book. That was The Conductors. Next book that I read, Her Name is Night. This was the first book that I read for Blackathon. It is actually the only book that I managed to actually read for Blackathon. Didn't end up submitting anything for any of their like competition stuff because I'm awkward and socially incapable, and it's great. Gave this book 5 stars, and it is very specific terms for these 5 stars, as you can see. I will explain that after we read the synopsis, the blurb. What are you? You hurt me. Why are you hurting me? Her Name is Night revolves around Nina Knight, a codename Echo, a highly trained assassin for the Tribe, a clandestine international organization dedicated to the protection and advancement of the peoples and countries of Africa around the world. Her Name is Night is a propulsive character story and action thriller driven by retribution, passion, strength, and coming to terms with your own true self, regardless of what anyone calls you. Honestly, I got this book as a Amazon First Reads, and this is absolutely fucking why. There's no way in hell I would have read that and been compelled to read this description and been compelled to read this book. Oh my god, that's a terrible description. I'll do a better one. So you have this chick, Nina Knight, who is an assassin, and she like grew up in a small town, but that town was pillaged when she was a young girl, and she was kidnapped, sold as a sex slave, she was sold with the intention of her being a sex slave. I don't know if the guy actually ended up having sex with her at all, but that was that. And she ends up killing him, escaping, and saving the life of this woman who is I forgot what the mother's name is, but she is Mrs. Knight, and Mrs. Knight is like, you saved my life. I owe you a debt of gratitude. I want to adopt you. And so she joins their family, becomes a highly trained assassin. And the book is basic, and where the book kind of takes place the other half of the time, because the book is split into before and after. Before is her journey going from her small African village to growing up and becoming part of the Knight family. That is the before. And then the after is years later. She is like a grown woman and is come to the realization that the people that destroyed her town and killed her family might not actually be dead. They might be alive and well and coming for her new family. And the book was very, very good. The writing was very, very good. The reason why I say skip the after sections is because there is a fucking romance with the blandest motherfucker I've ever read in any book whatsoever. He is so dull. He has no character to him whatsoever. And yet we have our main character literally go from, oh, my dad was just assassinated. No need to tell anyone, specifically the people that they are letting into their homes. No need to tell them that guy's probably to blame. That guy's the one that's risking their lives. No need to tell them they're in danger whatsoever. I have a date to go on. And I couldn't do it with him. I could not do it. This dude was not worth it. This dude had nothing worth that. And it's especially frustrating because it seemed like the author was trying to make it seem like Nina had a connection with them that kind of reminded her of herself, because this dude also has a daughter that she bonds with. And if the book had focused her bond on just her and the daughter, but like also because she's really close with the daughter, then she starts to have a bit of a connection with the father, that would have been fine. But to literally push that to the side so we can have this this fucking, oh my god, I hated it. To have this woman literally goes from, I am a highly trained assassin. I am going to go after this man that I know is extremely powerful to make sure he can never hurt anyone ever again. I don't want to think about, I know I antagonized him. And I know I made sure he knew who I was and who all the people I cared about are. And I know he broke into the house of this family I'm trying to join. And that means that the dude and his daughter are extremely at risk. I don't want to think about that right now. I want to go on a date. It was, I genuinely, I want to buy a physical copy of this book and literally rip out those pages, burn them, and then the book would be so much better. So much better. Like, everything that has to do with this romance is physically disgusting. Oh my god. They also, just because I saw his name here right now, the character Atta, the way they describe him is quite fatphobic, is one of those where they make, it seems like they want to say because he's a bad guy, describing him being fat as very negative is a good thing, and it's okay because he's supposed to be a bad guy, but like, it's very uncomfortable. Don't do that. Yeah. Yeah, that was Her Name is Night. Good book, but please God, do not give anything to this romance. I fucking hate this romance. I was genuinely going to either DNF or 1-star it until we hit chapter 73. I was ready to DNF, then we hit chapter 73, and I was like, oh, it's just so good, but why is this fucking trash-ass romance here? Legendborn! 1-star! 1-star! Yes! Let's go. fucking, this book hurt me. This book really hurt me. Let's go ahead. After her mother dies in an accident, 16-year-old Bree Matthews wants nothing to do with her family memories or childhood home. A residential program for bright high schoolers at UNC Chapel Hill seems like the perfect escape until Bree witnesses a magical attack at her very nice first night on campus. A flying demon feeding on human energies, a secret society so-called legend-born students that hunt the creatures down, and a mysterious teenage maid who calls himself Merlin and who attempts and fails to wipe Bree's memory of everything she saw. The mage's failure unlocks Bree's own... Hold on. I have audio, yeah. That's so stressful. Oh, no. Oh, no. What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? Okay. The mage's failure unlocks Bree's own unique magic and buried memory with a hidden connection the night her mother dies. Another Merlin was at the hospital. Now that Bree knows there's more to her mother's death than what's on the police report, she'll do whatever it takes to find out the truth, even if that means infiltrating the Legendborn as one of their initiates. She recruits Nick, a self-exiled Legendborn with his own grudge against the group, and their reluctant partnership pulls them deeper into society's secrets and closer to each other. But when the Legendborn reveals themselves as the descendants of King Arthur's knights and explain the magical wars coming, Bree has to decide how far she'll go for the truth and whether she should use her magic to take the society down or join the fight. I loved the writing of this book. I loved the relationship between Bree and Nick. I think Nick is one of the cutest fucking characters in all of fiction. I absolutely am disgusted with the way they try to villainize Bree for, like, to clarify, her mother dies, like, a couple months before the rest of this book. A couple months. And people, literally, the fact that the phrase, "what's gotten into you," was put in this book is the most ignorant shit I've ever seen in my life. And to have a character that is a therapist, a therapist that has not actually talked to this girl, who has not really asked this girl how she's feeling, who asked her about how she's handling any of this. This therapist has not had a single discussion with her, because they meet once and immediately leave because she has to decide if she wants to teach Bree about root magic, which is the magic that a lot of black people, including like back through slavery, learned. She leaves so she can decide if she wants to teach Bree root magic, and then the next time they get together, she takes her on a magical adventure, like a brief magical like memory walk is what it is, and then they break up, and then the last time they meet together, she brings in a stranger. The stranger then starts to interact with Bree's memory, starts to dig deep into Bree's memory. Bree has a panic attack and then leaves. And then the therapist demonizes the child. The therapist says, "You don't want to get better." The therapist says, "I can't condone what you're doing. I can't condone what you're doing, because even not saying anything is condoning it," which all she is doing is looking to see if she's trying to find justice and find justice to the person who murdered her mother. Fuck me if this girl wants to bring justice to the person who, like, she literally, as far as she has said, she explicitly wants legal justice for this murderer. Fuck me if that's too much to ask. This therapist also gives her a list of very demonizing fucking diagnoses, saying this girl is like being maladaptive. She is using the grief to backpedal in life and to regress and shit. It's been 2 months. She is 16 years old. You can see I am disgusted with how they talk about grief and talk about how this girl is handling grief. Because again, it's been 2 months. I wouldn't expect anyone to just accept the death of someone that they just had a fight with, accept an early death of their parent. Just accept that 2 months in. I wouldn't expect a child to do that. And again, she is a child. I'm not surprised that she is lashing out, especially again, because she blames herself for her mother's death for most of this. And then she thinks her mother's murdered. And she just wants to find out who murdered her and bring her to justice. And the book tries to say that the reason why is because the reason why the therapist is upset is because she doesn't want Bree to assimilate herself, to like fit herself into the box of the Legendborn. She doesn't do that. Again, it's not like this therapist has talked to her, asked her a single goddamn question, so she wouldn't know. But Bree doesn't. Every time we see people harassing her, attacking her, being rude and cruel and racist, or even like microaggressions that they wouldn't even know, some of her closest friends amongst the Legendborn start like randomly grabbing at her hair, and without her permission, and she's not even feeling up to interacting with people, but she comes out of her funk to say, hey, did I say you can touch my hair? Then don't touch my hair. She's consistently fighting back against their ignorance and cruelty from the very beginning. But again, this therapist has never actually sat down and talked with this fucking girl, so why would she know that? It's just, it's upsetting. The reason why I once started is I could not recommend this to someone because, again, you have this authority figure in this therapist saying that this girl is a problem, there's something wrong with her, when there's not. There's literally nothing wrong with her. She is grief-stricken, and she also thinks her mother was murdered. There's nothing wrong with the way she's behaving whatsoever. Yes, there's nothing abnormal about the way she's behaving. Yes, there are times where she is not necessarily thinking about other people. And granted, I also, like, the way her best friend treats it, like, she's an absolutely cruel person and, like, is trying to ruin everyone's life and doesn't care that she's ruining everyone's life. Her best friend can truly go fuck herself. But it would be one thing if you're just seeing, yes, it's understandable that she's experiencing grief this way, but it does have an impact on the other people. But no, the goal of the book is to say that she is a bad person, that there's something wrong with her for behaving this way, and that's fucking incorrect. And to have it come from an authority figure like a therapist, I feel is just not okay. And I feel like I feel like it's extremely problematic, and I feel like it is if I were to just recommend this book to someone, then they could very well take that as something that they should take to heart, because it is coming from an authority figure and is coming from a mental health authority figure, and that is incorrect. And I do not want to risk being a part of letting this toxic ass idea spread into the world. Also, the book was disgusting with info dumping. The info dumping in this book hurt my heart. It was nonstop because they kept adding on new fucking, it's like they just kept adding on, how do I want to say? Like new magic systems. That's what it is. They literally added on more, like you had the magic systems of the Legendborn, but then you had the magic system of root magic, but root magic has multiple magic systems, so you have to go through the memory walker magic system, then you have to go through the not conduit, but something like that. You have to go through their magic system, and so, like, it's one thing to info dump at the beginning, whatever. It's hard to get all that backstory and information out, fine. But because you keep adding new magic systems, it never stopped. I truly had zero fucks to give in the finale of this book, because they brought out, there were so many, like, new players added at the very end of the book that I truly just didn't care. I didn't care. And I'm not interested in the next book because I imagine the info dumping is going to continue, and they also look like they're trying to make this whole thing into a love triangle, which I have zero fucks to give about, so I'm not going to read the next book in this series. Yeah, very unfortunate, because I did add this to my 5-star book draft last minute. Like, I added it right before I really finished reading it, and I clearly 1 star. So 5-star book draft not going well so far. Next book, and I think the last book that full novel that I read this quarter, Tristan Strong Punches a Hole in the Sky. Oh my god, I had a full rant. I will never stop ranting about this book, and because I'm probably gonna do at the end of the year another like 5-star book draft wrap up, talking about all these 5-star predictions that I ended up getting to, my average, ranting about all of them, and this motherfucker, I'm gonna whip it out again if I remember any of it. I might just like clip this video and we'll just watch together on live stream. Watch me bitch and moan about this book, because oh my god, I'm sick of talking about Legendborn. Tristan Strong punches a hole in the sky. 7th grader. God, he's so young. He's so young. He's so young. He's in 7th grade. 7th grader Tristan Strong feels anything but strong ever since he failed to save his best friend when they were in a bus accident together. All he has left of Eddie is the journal his friend wrote stories in. Tristan is dreading the month he's going to spend on his grandparents' farm in Alabama, where he's being sent to heal from the tragedy. But on his first night there, a sticky creature shows up in his bedroom and steals Eddie's journal. Tristan chases after it. Is that a doll? And a tug of war ensues between them underneath a bottle tree. In the last attempt to wrestle the journal out of the creature's hands, Tristan punches the tree, accidentally ripping open a chasm into the mid-pass. A volatile place with a burning sea, haunted bone ships, and iron monsters that are hunting the inhabitants of this world. Tristan finds himself in the middle of a battle that has left black American gods John Henry and Brer Rabbit exhausted. In order to get back home, Tristan and these new allies will need to entice the god Anansi, the Weaver, to come out of hiding and seal the hole in the sky, but bartering with the trickster Anansi always comes at a price. Can Tristan save this world before he loses more of things he loves? I give this book 5 stars. Mostly because I wouldn't mind reading this book to my kids in the future. My issues with it. Like, I think it was cute. I think it was a fun story. I think it was just like a nice little romp around for like a middle grade book. I had no like major, like, again, I would read this again to some kids. That's why, like, 5-star. We're cool. Will say, biggest issue is that the gods left no impression. The only characters that left an impression were Tristan and Gumbaby. And Gumbaby is a specific type of character that is very overstimulating to me. So I just did not appreciate when she was on screen. But the rest of the gods just didn't leave much of an impression. The situation was often just, hey, God shows up for their, like, couple chapters. They show up, we give a quick like synopsis of their fairy tale folklore, their story, and then they do a little bit of stuff, and then they dip. And so I just never, the voices for those characters were not really strong, and the like their the way they were narratively brought in just didn't leave an impression. I don't really remember most of them. I don't know what most of them did, and I never grew up with these stories, so I don't have any connection to those characters whatsoever. I'm slightly more interested in the second book, because second book, from what I saw, is supposed to deal with him dealing with PTSD, which, same. So that, as well as the trickster god, who, like, a trickster god typically has more personality than a lot of other characters. So I feel like that could be a better read. Like, this book is 5 stars, but unless I continue to have an absolutely trash reading year, I can't imagine this would be on my top 10 list. But anything else of note? Also, there were a lot of action scenes, because Tristan's journey in this is, like, his power and like a major part of his journey is that he is a storyteller, and that's something he kind of has to get into. But there were a lot of action scenes that just that were literally just piled on top of each other. They didn't fit the narrative story in Tristan's arc. They didn't fit in at all. And the climax of the book, I didn't feel like it was a progression of Tristan's growth. I truly think if he had just been dropped on the leader bone ship at the beginning of the book, he would have done the exact same thing as he does at the end of the book. It doesn't feel like it at all is based on the growth he was supposed to have throughout the book. But again, it's just like a nice chill read. Not the best book I've ever read, not the best middle grade I've ever read, but it was a sweet book. Did definitely help me get out of my reading slump, as did the book I read right after, which I literally ate in like a week, I want to say. But we're not talking about that because that is the first book I finished this month, April. So we'll talk about it. It'll be the next stream. But that is Tristan Strong is the last novel I read. The rest of these, I'm not going to go into like a full description, like a full reading of the synopsis for all of these. We have The Other F Word, which was the only nonfiction I read this quarter. I don't imagine I'll read a ton of nonfiction, but in my life in general, I don't tend to do well with nonfiction. It's, for some reason, like, I'm better at reading a legitimate research paper than a memoir. It just does not hit well with me. But this was a collection of like short prose, poetry, and memoir-esque type stories to celebrate like big bodies, fat bodies. I was actually reading this for research. I actually did think it was going to be a short story fiction collection. It was a nice read. It was a good read. It did not necessarily satisfy the research I was doing, though. We'll keep looking, though. Then I read Another Name for the Devil. This was a short story, a short horror. Some of the comments were talking about how it's super not scary. You never know with some of these books if those comments are real or if those comments are, anti-queer. But I was thoroughly scared. I had a hard time going to sleep, so I gave it 5 stars. Sophie Dreams Big is the last book of the Lady Miss Southern Belle Insult series, where you have this girl, Janet, who is having a hard time in life, and so she ends up finding her way into this magical wig store, and with the wigs, she's able to help herself progress through life. But this is the book where she all the wigs disappear and the magic wig store disappears, and now she just has to acknowledge that some of that power is in her. And it was a cute story. It was a cute series. Big fan. I had the audiobooks and the ebooks, and I listened to the audiobooks and read along. Should I count that as 2 books? Haha. But yeah, I listened to the audiobooks, and Keke Palmer for the narration was 10/10. Then these 3 books. These are all short stories. They're in a series on Amazon, the Black Pages series, and these are some of the most disappointing reads that I read this year. I've been so excited to read these. Maybe it's me, but these covers definitely scream sci-fi. So I definitely thought they were going to be sci-fi. These 3, 2 of them were not. The first one was fine. It was kind of just a reversing of genders type of discussion, and it was fine. The second one felt like a fraction of a story, and that's why I gave it 1 star, because it literally didn't feel like I was given even half of a story. It felt like I was given the exposition and the inciting event, and then roll credits, and that was very unsatisfying to read. And then the third one I just did not like. The second one was, you have this book you have, I forgot which country, but I believe Al Qaeda was coming to destroy. Was coming. They're taking. Al Qaeda was taking over this country, and Timbuktu. Al Qaeda's coming to take over Timbuktu, and they're trying to destroy and burn books because education is like the key to revolution. And so they want to destroy the books, and you have this kid who's the men in his family have been hiding all of these books. And there's like this one specific book that I think ends up in his backpack, and he touches it, and he has like some vision or something happens, something mystical happens, and then this Jen who is trapped in the book awakens and takes him and helps him hide out because Al Qaeda found his house and wants to kill his family and burn the books. And his mom, like as the Jen is helping him leave, his mom like gets thrown up into the ceiling by some magical force, and then he passes out and wakes up in the middle of the desert, and that's it. That's the whole book. And yeah, I definitely feel like I was missing a lot. Very unsatisfying story. And then I tried the last book not even the last book. It's the next book in the series. It's the last one I tried. I really gave up in it. So you have this world where Black folk are given the opportunity to get reparations in the form of getting turned into a mer person and then being given like some land under the sea. And naturally there's lots of racism and like aggression, and people, they're attacked. There's a whole ass city under the sea, and our main characters are in a band. They're about to perform down there, and during the performance they're attacked, and everyone has to escape from the clutches of the attack, and that's where the story ends. Like it's like basically there's all but a bomb thrown down there while they're performing, and then they leave the area, and that's it. And it's just I was not satisfied. I was not satisfied at all with that book. So yeah, these three, I read these three after I DNF'd my second pick for my Blackathon read, and it was very tragic. It just kept getting worse and worse, and then Legendborn happened, and then I DNF'd a couple more books, which we are going to get into my DNFs now. Whew. Last but not least was my DNFs of the quarter. The Intangible by C.J. Lewis. Oh my god. Okay. Amanda Jackson has always longed to be a mother. The early weeks of her pregnancy are a mixture of joy, anticipation, and uncertainty as she and her husband prepare for the journey. Then comes a devastating loss. Even though her doctors tell her otherwise, Amanda believes she's still pregnant. Her diagnosis is a rare, mysterious condition called pseudocyesis. Betrayed by her mind and body and her marriage strained, Amanda turns to a neuroscientist, Patrick Davis, for answers. Patrick understands the strange twists and turns of the human mind better than anyone, but as he spirals ever deeper into Amanda's illness, his own home life crumbles as his wife Marissa struggles to cope with her own loss. Marissa's unique and some may think macabre work is her salvation, but it's pulling her further away from Patrick. As the two couples confront the fraught intersection of science, death, and human emotion, they venture into the darkest corners of each other's lives, where they find what they find there could change them forever. I hated this book. I got to like 25% and I was bleeding the whole way through. So the issue I had with this book is the narrative voice for all these characters was absolutely, like, it wasn't distinct at all. So I was and it wasn't distinct, and I constantly was confusing each person. Like, if you ask me, I'm fairly certain both chicks had an affair, and that's how they both got pregnant, and it's just, I don't know if that's true or not, because it was so hard to tell the difference between, like, it said at the beginning of the chapter who the chapter was based on, but it took, like, 25% of the way in, none of the characters felt distinct enough for me to, like, remember who is who, you know? So, like, all of it was mixing together, and I was, like, at 25%, and I was like, wait, wasn't this person? And I was about to go back through to double check, and I was like, wait, it's 25% of the way through. I literally don't know who is who. I literally still have no clue who is who, because they're all described fairly similarly, and it's just, it was rough. I'm fairly certain at least one of the women is black. I don't know which one. I don't know which one's black. But I'm fairly certain at least one of them is. This book was so, like, I couldn't, and another thing that also made it super hard to tell who was who was because the book each chapter was all still not in chronological order. Each chapter was supposed to be from a different character's POV, and it still was not in chronological order. It was, I don't think it was just dates. I think it was specifically how far along in the pregnancy or before whatever accident took their ended up leading to a miscarriage, and it wasn't chronological. It jumped around, and so naturally I'm not keeping any of that shit straight. And these characters, again, I can't tell the difference between them. I was so interested. I had so much hope for this book. I thought this book was going to emotionally devastate me, but I was just so disinterested and so confused the whole fucking time that we just DNF'd. We couldn't do it. We could not do it with this book. Bless the Daughter Raised by the Voice in Her Head is a poetry collection by Warson Shire. I jumped into reading this poetry collection because I thought the title alone makes it sound like something I should love. I believe I did check the description, and I was like, oh, this sounds like something I should love, and I just was not getting into it. 101 essays that will change the way you think. This is my fault. Some white chick I was following on, like, Instagram or something, some white YouTuber was reading this book, and I was like, oh my god, I should check it out. This book is definitely not for me. I was very excited. I was like, oh my god, support another Brianna. Checked the bio. It's a white woman. And I was like, we can try. Got like one or two of those essays, and I was like, this is not for me. This is not for me. Yeah, it's honestly from what I remember, it was like, I don't remember if it was toxic positivity or like, it was basically like, if I read this book, every single essay would have we don't mean this for someone who has like mental health issues. We don't mean this for someone who's autistic. We don't mean this for someone with PTSD. We don't mean this for a black person, like, or someone a marginalized person who experiences racism and shit like that. And it was not worth it. Not interested. And the last DNF, the one that hurt the most of all the DNFs, The Chosen, the Beautiful. Let's read this. Jordan Baker grows up on the most rarefied circles of 1920s American society. She has money, education, a killer golf handicap, and invitations to some of the most exclusive parties of the jazz age. She's also queer, Asian, adopted, and treated as an exotic attraction by her peers, while the most important doors remain closed to her. But the world is full of wonders, infernal pacts and dazzling illusions, lost ghosts and elemental mysteries. All in all paper is fire, and Jordan can burn the cut paper heart out of a man. She just has to learn how. Frankly, even like reading this description, I would not have guessed how supernatural they go with this, which is fine. The book was just boring. This book was boring. This book is about, I believe it is about the same number of pages as the original, because this is like rewriting, a retelling of The Great Gatsby from the perspective of the friend, and it was just so boring. It was, yeah, it's about 60 pages longer. That's nothing wild. It was just so boring. It was so dreadfully boring. Like, I want to say it was like 20% of the way through the book. I had just gotten to the point where it seemed like Gatsby had a crush on Nick, and he's asking Jordan about it. And I just, it was not a pleasant read. Nothing was enticing me about this story and about the way we were going about, like, it's wild because the point of The Great Gatsby is that Gatsby is one of the most enticing characters in literature, right? He's supposed to draw you in almost like bait. And we decided to completely shift focus away from him to the character that, as written, is supposed to be barely interesting. And she remained barely interesting in this version. I guess she's queer. As far as I got in the book, she had only been with or talked about being with dudes. I don't know. I didn't get to any part which the book would have told me she was queer, I don't think. And I just, this book was painfully boring. I almost cried. It was not doing it. It was not doing it for me. And this was another 5-star book draft. So my first 2 5-star book draft picks were a 1-star and a DNF. And so it hurt me deeply. But, yeah. I was just not into it. I was not feeling it at all. It was just so boring. It was so boring. I had zero interest in reading. Oh my god. But yeah, that's all of the books we touched on this quarter. Very, very excited to, have a better quarter this time around. Will say, in case anyone is directly following on and reading with me, I am currently reading You Truly Assumed by, let me actually, I'm currently reading You Truly Assumed by Layla Sabrine. And then I changed, if you've seen my last progress report video on the vlog channel, everything about that is the same. That order is going to be the same, but we are adding, after You Truly Assumed, we're adding Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Avocillo. That is going to be the next book that I read. Instead, I've only heard about it like the other day and was immediately like, I just definitely need to read this book really quick. It's also like it might be a really good recommendation for someone I care about, so I want to pop that into the TBR. But yeah, that's been my nightmare of a reading month. Thank you guys so much for listening to me and letting me suffer and share my suffering with you. That's all I have for right now. Thank you so much again. And until next time, which will be my review live show of Ace of Spades. Until next time, and until then, valedictions, friends.